Hello everybody and welcome back to another silly stream about good old Battletech CCG. And this is the final stream, at least for the moment, about Project W. And if you've been following the stream, you'll know that Project W is my effort, call it whatever you want, to mix the game up a little, to add a global effect to the board and the state without playing with anyone's decks or deck construction or messing around with any of the core game, in order to add a bit of variety, a bit of spice. I am here with the final set of cards, the weather conditions that are rare or potentially natural disasters. This is why some of these are a little stream, and in true British style, I've got a cup of tea with me just to keep my whistle wet as we walk through these lot. So, as you might be able to see, there are 17 rare cards, and I know that's completely unbalanced at the moment. There are 18 commons, there are 13 uncommons, and I need to do a few things with this. And as you can see in the keywords, there are conditions like this one here, miasma. There are weather or extreme weathers down the bottom here, and there are disasters, which are the more extreme cards. They're not balanced in numbers. I'll say that for a start. There is one condition, there are 4 bits of weather, and I probably need to do something with those in order to balance them out. The disasters are quite extreme, and they are there to, or the idea there is, instead of having one of the rarer cards, was to have a natural disaster replace them. The problem is I've got like 10 disasters or 12 disasters and only about 5 normal weather cards, so I need to do a bit of adjusting and a bit of balancing, but that's not really for the talk of here. I'm intending to just talk through the cards and see where, or explain my ideas behind them and the thought process, etc, etc, and see what you think. I might be able to add a few more cards, I might be able to rebalance 1 or 2, I might be able to move 1 or 2 from rare sets to other sets. For example, if you look at the wildfires card, and again at this point it's worth stepping back to say that the rarity of these cards is generally reflected in the rarity of that type of weather. Wildfires, is that rare these days, or given global warming is that a little more uncommon? Maybe it should move to the uncommon section. If I do that, do I tone the ability down because the rarer cards are more powerful, the common cards are less powerful? So there's some tweaking to be had and done here, and if you've got an idea about what that tweak should be, what that should look like, or even if you've got an idea for, hey, that would be a great piece of weather or such like, then drop me a line, whether it's on Facebook, whether it's on YouTube, whatever else. Let me know, and if I like it, I'll do it. If I don't like it, we'll talk about it. Maybe we can come to some sort of common consensus, but I'm quite open to ideas. So without further ado, let's look at these 17 cards. And the first one in the rare section is actually a condition, which is miasma, or kind of like toxic, foggy weirdness. And this is described by the wonderful purple smoke coming out of this mech. I must admit, when I put this in, I thought, I have so got to use that kind of toxic fog effect eroding and melting this unit. And this is why the miasma effect says all units have 2 less structure. And if that means your little Cyrano dies and your Dasher Prime dies, then they go to the scrap heap. All units have 2 less structure at that point, and it's a bit like Kurita High Command, where you give -1 structure and add C3 to a unit. If the unit is on 1 structure less than its maximum and you put the card in play, the unit gets scrapped, and the same case is here. And this is why this is rare. You know, there's only 1 of these in a deck, or at the moment there's only 1 of these in a deck. And because that's quite strong. That's quite strong. It's arguably similar to Dest Commando Strike, the Kurita card that does two structure to anything on the board. Very similar kind of thing, although it's the opponent. Just to remember, these are random. These happen straight away. And if this is replaced by another card, such as our ubiquitous Have a Nice Day, where everything's normal, you get your 2 structure back. Unfortunately, all the units that are scrapped are still scrapped. Okie dokie. I think I'm going to leave the disasters for the moment and move on to the weather conditions. Blizzard is a card, I was going to say described by the game company, but it's not quite the case. It is one of those cards. I've always quite liked the word. In England, there's a weather producer. Someone that deals the weather after the news, and she's called Sarah Blizzard, and it always makes me chuckle. So, Blizzard, the overheat damage of every unit is 0. Okay. So what do I mean when I say overheat damage? Because I find the overheat, the way it's worded, quite bad. Normally, it's overheat X to do damage to yourself to gain plus Y. Okay, so this says that the overheat damage that you do to yourself is 0. So basically you can overheat without hurting yourself, and that's represented by the cold climate and the blizzard and whatever else. I might be able to do something else with it if you think it's too powerful. Obviously there's lots of site issues regarding the particular blizzard itself, and then maybe you could change that around if we needed to. Okay, this I think was the first card I wrote, interestingly enough. Okay, lightning strikes, the Highlander card that can be only one. Attacking units receive 2 structure damage, and that is structure. So this is Rocky Gorge plus effectively, but that's only if you attack. And yes, that could promote a stalemate, but again, it can be removed. You can remove it on your turn, the opponent can remove their card on their turn, etc, etc. So just to kind of deal with that, you could change this. You could say all mech options, e.g. ECM, anti-missile and whatever else. For those of you playing on the variations of the game, Beagle Probe, do not work. Perfectly feasible. Whether a lightning strike is rare these days, I'm not so sure. There could be a case made for it going into uncommon and toning down slightly. Sandstorm, definitely rare. All units are slow and only block if guarding. It's a crazy stall card in this respect. It stops things happening. But it mimics the effect, or the effect mimics the actual action, and can only block if guarding adds a dynamic effect, because if you pull this at the end of your missions phase and you've left 5 fast units to block anything, thinking everything they've got is slow, then it doesn't happen. So that's quite a powerful effect. Okay, and Thunderstorm, command cards cannot be attacked or damaged. So anything in there, any of the uniques like Galen Cox, or maybe not Galen Cox, Wolfgang Hansen's a better example, or Arrow 4, or even support cards, anything in that command area or with the command keyword cannot be attacked or damaged. So it just means that you can't go resource hunting, or you can't get rid of something that you want to get rid of, which is again a double-edged sword. So to the disasters. These are the extreme things, and one or two of these are a little fictional, but I think they're all quite decent otherwise. So acid rain, the armor value of all units is now 0. Just to denote the fact of the degradation of acid rain on those kinds of things. It kind of weakens big mech decks a bit. It kind of weakens swarm decks a little, because you're taking all those armor points off. I think it would be quite interesting to compare an average clan deck and an average inner sphere deck and add up just the armor values on the units, and I suspect there wouldn't be a great deal of difference unit for unit as an average, say, but I think there might be a little bit of difference with the inner sphere maybe having slightly more in total, probably from more units and maybe more cheaper units. So yeah, Avalanche is arguably on a turn one of those cards that again could go into uncommon. Deplete all patrolling units. Wow. It probably should be units and not mechs, to be honest with you. Maybe I should change that. At the start of your turn, you may pay 1 resource to untap 1 unit as many times as you want, is probably the next piece of text I should put in there. But basically it represents all of the units being snowed under, literally, and you having to spend time digging them out. And remember, this applies to both players across the board. So you might argue that the dashing decks or VTOL decks might get a bit of advantage out of this, but it has an effect mid-game that can change the course of the game potentially. Drought, possibly one of my favourite images of this set, and this one again is potentially quite nasty but potentially quite innocuous. Scrap all terrain cards and you cannot play any terrain card, so that means falsified maps doesn't work, all your rocky gorges go, all your fog shrouded moors go, and they cannot be played. It's great if you're playing against a deck that's got terrains and you haven't, but if you haven't got any terrains in at all, it's completely innocuous, doesn't work. I think terrains are reasonably popular, that it would probably have an effect on game 2 and possibly game 3 of a normal match stroke series, but possibly not so much in the first one. People tend not to put terrains in the deck to start with. Okay. Earthquake. Command cards receive 1 structure damage. Not too bad, unless of course you live in Iceland. But it does kill off a number of, potentially weaken a number of cards. Your Solaris contacts at a 5/2 all of a sudden becomes a lot more killable. Anything, if you'll play the one deck that would really take advantage of this is your strategic bombardment Arrow 4 deck, and if this popped off in one of those decks, it would be quite strong. Remember, as I said, it's a rare effect. There would only be 1 of these in a deck, and at the moment it's a random draw, so it'd be a 1 in 13 chance of being in the deck, and then another 1 in 10 chance of being drawn. Additionally, the natural disasters, I can tweak this so there's a less chance of them being drawn. Currently it's about 10%, but I'm not sure whether I should change that or not. That could increase or decrease. So my point here is that yes, that really would work with a strategic bombardment deck. Are you going to draw it all the time? No. If you go down the route of the game where these are not randomly assigned and you pick it, then you probably need some sort of ruling about what should be in the content of the weather deck, and maybe this is the one that they would choose. It's strong, but even on that, it's a 1 in 10 chance that it's drawn, so you would get it once in 10 turns and the game's probably over at that point. So I don't see it being broken, I just see it being very strong in that particular deck. Flash floods, given the frequency in the UK at least, this should probably go to common, let alone rare. Tap all guarding mechs, all units are now slow, so everything can block everything, but there are no guards. Fair enough. Does what it says on the tin. Probably encourages attacking if you've got more units, and not so. the units are now slow compensates for the removal of guards, so all the units are the same speed. Obviously, if it's fast, it's slow. If it's moderate, if it's slow. And if it's slow, it always was slow and continues to be slow. Okay. Hurricane. I like this one. I think this is quite fun. Move all guarding units to the patrol region. No units may guard. And this is just basically made up by the fact that hurricanes throw people all over the place and whatever else. Maybe it should have been called Twister for those of you watching the movie and other things like that. But again, it gets rid of guards and then stops guards in total. It works great with VTOLs. Maybe there should be something in there. Maybe it should be move all guarding units to the patrol region. All VTOLs take 2 damage or something. Again, open to options on that. If you don't like it, you want an opinion on it, please say. But the idea being to mix and match things up, that could be quite strong or quite devastating mid-game. If you're playing the TCG where you can guard with everything and not tap to block, that completely screws that over. But then again, it's not the best strategy anyway. So landslide, deal 3 damage to each unit in the patrol region. Note that guards are not included, and it applies to both sides, and if it kills a unit, it kills a unit. You know, nothing too crazy really. You know, whether 3 is too much to make it 2, again, quite happy with that. I kind of went generous a bit on the rares because you only get 1. On the slide thing, we've got mudslide. Tap all patrolling mechs. All units are now slow. Maybe there's a bit too much slow stuff in here. Maybe the hurricane should go to the VTOLs because we've got mudslide slowing everything up. But again, it kind of makes sense with all the units being tied up in this big chocolatey goop that nothing really happens. Tornado. VTOLs cannot attack or block. Missile options cannot be used. This is just to simulate the flying in and out of various things, being thrown all over the place, etc, etc. And it just shows that there is a place for VTOLs in my heart. It's just not on the table maybe. Okay. Tsunami. Each stockpile receives 5 damage. Yes, this is like blow the pass but for everybody, or tac nuke for everybody, or what's the crazy card with the guy with the psycho stuff blowing things up? Indiscriminate terrorism, where each stockpile takes damage. That's just reminded. Ooh, that's just given me a thought. So I've just thought of another deck. I'll just write that down. That could be fun. So here's our tsunami. That big wave that crushes everything. The one that hit Fukushima, for example, the Japanese nuclear reactor. That kind of effect. It just hits everything and washes over it. Each stockpile receives 5 damage. You can make a case for doing damage to every unit, but then the card just gets ridiculous and extreme. So I think 5 damage for everybody or each stockpile is quite significant. And again, at a certain stage of the game, it could mean game end. Yeah, I was doing all right, and then I got hit by a tsunami. Yeah, okay. Volcanic eruption. Possibly should just be called eruption, to be honest. Each player scraps one of their units in the patrol region. There you go, just simulates a volcano going off, and in this case, as you can see, melting a unit. Obviously it has more effect if your opponent has more units or is playing a swarm, but it's a unit for... It kind of hurts big mech decks more than it hurts swarms by a long chalk, because 2 cost units are easy to throw out, whereas building 15 cost Masakari, Daishi, Mad Cats or whatever else quite hurts. But you do get to choose. So You know, it's not like you've just killed the Mad Cat. You just got to kill, like, no, the Man of War Prime or the Fenris A instead. Okay. Wildfire. And I think again, when you look at this is the last one, and when you look at the frequency of weather in the world at the moment, maybe this is one that should possibly go to uncommon. Attacking units receive damage equal to double the damage of their overheat attack option. Whoa, what a phrase! I'm not sure I really worded that one very well. Overheat option. X plus Y. Overheat to do X damage to yourself, to do Y attack. Okay, double the damage of their overheat attack option. So the plus whatever it is gets doubled. Okay, but it goes to yourself. Should that be probably double the self damage? Probably. A bit like in Inferno Missile Retrofit, but I think that was one of the uncommon cards. So maybe this is not as bad as it seems. Maybe I should have a look at that and tweak that and change that and rewrite that slightly. It doesn't seem quite as powerful as the others. Maybe it should be all you. Maybe going back to not Scorchio, Heatwave I think it was, which is 3+1. Maybe that should be +1+1 or even +2+1, and this should be +4+1 or something, or +4 -2, and you take 2 attack off it, just to balance that out a little. Again, there's element there for a bit of play testing, for messing around with it and having a look at it, and again you could at least make that. Because at the moment it just feels, and this is me, as I said, I wrote these 3 months ago. I've come back and look at them. It feels a little underwhelming when you compare it to something like a tsunami, 5 damage to each stockpile, or some of the other effects here, 3 damage to everything. Whereas this is units receive damage equal to double the damage of their overheat attack option. Maybe it should just be units receive structure damage equal to it, so the overheating ones take damage and don't get any benefit from it, but if you've got a normal unit without it, then maybe that's the case. Okay, and that's the list. Okay, that's the list. It's not finitoed, it's not finite, it's not done. There's certainly a lot of scope in there to play around with the ideas. There is a lot of scope to group these into chunks whereby some of the effects, I mean, let's face it, tsunami is crazy, 5 damage to everything, but you're not going to get that in every game. And if you can turn that into a natural disaster that appears once in a 1 in 10 chance, so it's a 1 in 10 chance of being the natural disaster you draw, because there are 9 other ones, and then that's only drawn on a 1 in 10 chance from the deck to start with. You're suddenly talking a 1 in 100 occurrence that you get a tsunami, which is kind of representative of the real world in that respect. So there is scope to vary or change the percentages or likelihoods that these will occur. Whether they're all as strong as each other is another question. I think some of them are quite interesting. I think the effects are interesting as well. Whether they have the same value is very difficult to say, because you have to look at the game at that point in time, you have to look at the context, you have to look at what factions are being played and who they're being played against. So I think there's scope for movement and the scope for testing. So anyway, if you like what you see, give me a thumbs up, join the YouTube channel, etc, etc. If you've got an idea about any of these, then post it. Either shove it on YouTube, stick it on the Facebook group, etc, etc. Let me know, and we'll have a look at them. I'm open to options and ideas here. This isn't a fixed dictatorship of cards. But I think there are some interesting effects that can be explored, and hopefully you'd like to be part of that. So anyway, in the true words of Pump Up the Volume, I'm done. Stick a fork in me, and I hope to hear you again on another day for another stream for some Battletech. Take care, everyone.